Hello, everybody. This is Dean DeVries over at the Dean's List Group at Keller Williams Realty, and I'm excited for today's interview. The purpose of the interview today is to talk about a really awesome program that we just signed on with in the last 30 days, and we've already helped a few clients. We sent them in the direction of this program. We're going to be talking about a lot of cool things. We'll be talking about what the Teacher Next Door program is. It is a national program. I'm not going to steal Albie's thunder. Albie is our guest today, so he'll be explaining in more detail a little bit about the program. But we'll be talking about a lot of things like down payment assistance, help with closing costs, and how us as realtors can help our clients get into the homes that they want and be positioned the best way possible. So Albie, welcome to the I guess the show, we'll call it.
Right on. Hello.
So why don't you just start off by telling the audience a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what you do with the Teacher Next Door program.
Okay, so I work for People's Mortgage, and we do the financing nationwide for Teacher Next Door. There's actually two banks that do the financing, and in Florida, it's mostly People's Mortgage. And so Teacher Next Door has been around for about 6 years, and sometimes teachers think it's like the HUD program. It used to be called Teacher Next Door, but then when HUD expanded it to include nurses, nurses, EMTs, firemen, police officers, not nurses, sorry. I'm thinking Nurse Next Door.
Yeah, which that is another program, and we'll touch on that in a little bit. But
yeah, Good Neighbor Next Door, which was Teacher Next Door. Now that includes police officers, firemen, EMTs, and teachers. So that's the half price house. It's if you can get one, it's awesome, but it's just not too realistic to actually find one of those houses anymore. So Teacher Next Door is a benefit for the teachers, and it's on every single house that's in the marketplace. And so that's a program all the teachers can take advantage of. And the director who put this thing together, his wife was a teacher also. She actually just retired this year, but he knew that the program Good Neighbor Next Door didn't really help out too many teachers. So he designed this program, and it's just been helping tons of teachers and their families. And for the last 5 years, it's been growing and growing.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think that's super important that, the times have changed, and times are going to continue to change. And so it's whenever we work with, buyers and sellers that may have done a transaction 10 years ago when the economic climate was obviously much different. The real estate market was much different. There was different programs available, which, some programs that we have nowadays are better. Some of them are not as good. It just depends on, what niche that program serves. But given that, HUD doesn't have, an abundance of these programs anymore to serve the educators that we want to serve, I loved kind of the the plug that Teacher Next Door has given for that hole in the market, to make sure that we can still help educators and teachers alike to to achieve their goals of home ownership.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's great. And so you guys are nationwide. Tell us a little bit about that structure, and do you have different departments for each state, or how does that all work?
Yeah, so People's Mortgage is licensed in 31 states. So we help with the financing in those, and then ENG is in the other 19 states. And so depending on the situation for the teacher and their family, we'll figure out which type of loan is going to be best for their situation. So is that a FHA loan or a conventional loan or USDA or VA? And so we'll help them depending on their income, their debt structure, their student loan debt, and put together a program for them. Sometimes it's down payment assistance if they don't have a lot of money saved up. Sometimes there's better ways to go if they do have some money for a down payment. So we kind of hold their hand through that whole process, and we do that in all the states that we're licensed in.
That's awesome. So you guys have the traditional, mortgage programs that, most any other lender has access to. So it's not like anybody is, sorry about the intercom here, but, so what, yeah, we have a team leader that likes to ramble on the intercom. It's messing up my focus a little bit. Sorry for the audience here. But anyway, so if somebody wants to get a mortgage with you, you have access to all the different programs that pretty much any other lender would, or at least most of them, and you guys are competitive on that front. Am I right about that?
Yeah, definitely. We're aggressive on our pricing, but really we're holding their hand through the whole process. So when they come to us, teachers are really good at teaching, but they probably, in their lifetime are maybe going to buy 3 or 4 homes over their whole lifetime. So it's not something that they have a lot of experience in. So there's a lot of things that are coming at them throughout the home purchase process. So what we do is kind of talking about the program and then figure out their specific needs. And depending on, there's lots of variances depending on where they're at financially, if they have money saved, if they don't, if they've got a lot of debt right now, if they don't, what they're looking for is just their first home, second home, investment property. So there's just a lot of different things that go into it. So we're going to hold their hand from start to finish. In the beginning, we figure out, financially where they're at, get them pre-qualified, get them over to you where you're going to actually figure out, okay, here's your buying power. So what's available in the marketplace? And then that's where it gets exciting, is when they go shopping for a home.
Totally. Yeah. And a lot of the teachers, especially like the younger teachers that, haven't ever owned a home before, or some people that, are just getting into the home ownership game. I mean, especially for our educators, at least here in Florida, I mean, they get, in my opinion, grossly underpaid. And, it's very common for, even though it's, consistent cash flow for them, which is something that, lenders like to see. But oftentimes the challenge that we have is they don't have a whole lot in reserves. Mm-hmm. And, the biggest advice I could give to anybody that we work with is just get into the homeownership game. Yeah. Even if it's not the perfect house, it's never going to be the perfect house, especially for your first one. But just at least own something that you can build your wealth around as a family. Yeah. And so that's always our main focus whenever we're helping people that are in that situation. And I loved running into you guys. And now that we have a few clients together, we're seeing how this could totally change the game for teachers that want to take that step into homeownership. And it actually is realistic for our clients now, that before the Teacher Next Door, it wasn't really possible. We didn't really have, an avenue for them to go to just get into the real estate game. So, so let's talk a little bit about, that person that, maybe has given up on the dream of homeownership, because even though they might have a consistent, solid income, maybe it's, just them, or maybe it's, they have a spouse's income that they can also use, but maybe they're just a little tight on reserves. They don't have a whole lot of money to put as a down payment, or especially closing costs. Closing costs is something that not a whole lot of people think about whenever they first get into buying real estate. A lot of people hear about the FHA 3.5% down. I think there's even a conventional 3% down. Not my area of expertise, but I hear about these programs, and some people think, okay, well, for a $200,000 house, if I'm only putting 3% down, I only need $6,000. And when somebody comes to us and says, hey, I've got my down payment, they're not even thinking about inspection costs, appraisals, closing costs, which could be it could be double the amount of their total cash reserves that they need from their down payment. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit more about some of the solutions that you guys have created for these people?
Yeah. So depending on the marketplace, if it's not a seller's market, which most marketplaces happen to be right now, that's where we could ask the sellers to contribute a little bit. But what's happening is a lot of folks are getting discouraged, because let's say it's the first weekend on the market. The teacher just loves the home. This is perfect. And the price range, everything they want. They go to make an offer, and they've got the $6,000 you're talking about for the down payment, but they don't have anything for closing costs. So if we say, okay, well, let's get the sellers to pay the closing costs, and they say, well, we got 4 offers and there's only one that's asking for closing costs, the other ones aren't, these are going to net us more money. So that's where we could run into an issue. So in those situations, a lot of times what we'll do is switch to a down payment assistance loan. And so with the down payment assistance, now they've got their $6,000, we can use that for closing costs. So now the down payment that they had that money for, we use down payment assistance. They have the money for closing. Now our offer looks better in the marketplace, and now we can actually get them into the home. So that's one of the strategies. A lot of times, there's if it's a first-time buyer situation, the folks really know the difference their life path is going to take. When you look at, if I rent for the next 20 years, what does my life look like? Or if I bought a home 20 years, I mean, your world's different. Now you've got this asset that's, worth whatever, $300,000-$400,000 in the future. If you look back at home prices 20 years ago or 30 years ago, what were they? If you look back at rents 20, 30 years ago, what were they? And then where are they now? It's going to be the same thing as you jump forward, 20, 30 years. So if you can own a home, now you've got all that equity that's built up. Plus, when you go to retire, now you don't have a payment. And so if you're renting, it only goes up and up and up, and you got this payment. So your world's totally different once you get through retirement. So we try to help teachers to understand that. A lot of them are like, hey, I'm just going to keep renting right now. I'm not really thinking about that. But if they do that and keep postponing, these rates are kind of creeping, the sales prices are creeping, and you look back, well, where was it 20 years ago? And you're like, wow, what if that happens again, which it will. So really, it's really important to figure out strategies to help them become owners now, rather than waiting 10 years or 15 years. And, it's a different picture.
Yeah, no, I love what you're saying. And, there's something that's happening here in our market locally, here in Port St. Lucie. During the recession, we had home prices that were so low because, we're primarily a residential community. There's not really a whole lot of commerce here. Actually, that's starting to change, and we're starting to grow on that front. And we've got a lot of great infrastructure to be able to, to serve a lot of, businesses that want to invest into the St. Lucie area. But as of right now, and for the most part, for the last, 10, 15 years, it's been primarily a residential community. So we're very, very sensitive to any sort of market correction. And because of that, we had insanely low, sale prices. And a lot of people are looking at the sale prices nowadays and saying, oh gosh, everything's so expensive. And what's crazy is that most of the country is back up to those 2005, 2006 levels.
Right.
We're not even close to where we were.
Wow.
So we're still about 20% less.
That's a huge opportunity.
Exactly. And so even though it's easy to look at, oh, well, this person bought this house for $135,000, but now they're selling it for $235,000. That scares off some people because they're like, oh, well, what's going to happen to my home value? And I think there's more to look at than just that. And I'd love to dive into a conversation with you about this, because this is going to be more of your expertise than mine. But we have historically low interest rates and have had those for almost a decade now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So when people are getting, like, I was just working with a client, they got a 5% interest rate. A year ago, you probably could have gotten that same loan at a 4% interest rate. So the interest rate has crept up. I would say, what would you say in the last 12 months? Maybe on average a percent and a half.
Yeah, it's about 1%. Yeah, we were in the high threes, going over that 4 mark, and that's a big transition for people mentally. It's like, no, I'm in the threes. Now we're in the 4s, and now same thing, 5s. When I started back in '91, I was pulling people out of double-digit interest rates, and like, we're going to get 9 and 7. Oh my goodness, And so the perspective changed, and for the last 20 years, we've been nice and low in the 7s, and then creeping down into the 5s, and then to the 3s, which is never. Crazy, but it'll, everyone's thinking it's going to creep back up. And as we get, your buying power changes from a 5% interest rate to a 6%, you don't have as much buying power, and then to a 7, not as much buying power. So that's the concern as we're moving forward. If you can get into a home now, like you're saying, you guys are still 20% below where you guys, the recovery thing, and most of the other places have already recovered. So there's that opportunity there. But then also the interest rate buying power, where you could afford a $200,000 house, but the interest rate goes up 1%. Now you can afford 170. And so that's the tricky thing is, most people think you're going up. Nobody knows for sure, but it's kind of the trend.
Sure, absolutely. And my belief is that if we can expose this program to as many educators as possible, because I believe that educators are an underserved market, and we need to get educators in the homeownership game. Our office manager, Jennifer Gomez, she served as an educator for the St. Lucie County School District for 11 years. And she had a retirement plan set up with them and everything. That, she had her benefits. And the crazy thing about it is that her retirement that she's been working on for 11 years is, I mean, it's nothing. And if that, I mean, it's, you know, every dollar counts, right? So it's nice to have that. But if you're not doing something extra, like owning a home and having an asset that you're putting your money into, that's going to be the most sound investment that you make for your family. So if we can just get people, as many people into the home ownership game and kind of wipe away that fear. And that's why I love this conversation, because I hope that the listeners that, you know, that are identifying with what we're talking about and kind of see themselves in that same place, this might help them catapult forward and be in a home that they own a lot sooner than they think. And I believe time is of the essence, not because I think something's going to, you know, I think our economy is strong right now. We've got, you know, a lot of good things happening here locally in Port St. Lucie. So I see a big future in Port St. Lucie. But even if the market goes up and down, it always does over time. But locking in a low interest rate, that's something you can't always, you can't always control.
Yeah,
and,
we can't press rewind. That's
exactly. So, I mean, now, you know, I mean, 5%, if somebody got 5% 15 years ago, they would have been thrilled, you know? I mean, if they got 8%, they would have been
still stoked. Yeah.
So I think we're just in a perfect storm of opportunity for a lot of people. So you know, the goal of this is to expose this program, get people thinking, okay, is this right for us? And you know, we invite anybody that is listening right now to reach out to Albie and I and talk with us about, you know, let's have a consultation and see if this is right for you. See if this can help you get to that next level. So what are the next steps? Let's say, you know, I'm a teacher. I'm like, man, this guy, Albie, he's really cool. I think he can help me out. Where do I find you? What's the first step in getting moving with this process?
So the easiest thing is to go to teachernextdoor.us. And so if you just remember Teacher Next Door, and it's .us because it serves the United States, there's a lot of frequently asked questions. There's a lot of information on there, some videos. You can apply online. It's a quickie application, just a little bit about, you know, what you're looking to purchase, kind of where you're at right now. And so that's the easiest way to start your journey. And then we'll educate you on how the program works and then what's best for you. But one of the things I wanted to say, kind of off what you just said before, a lot of folks that are currently renting a home and they're thinking, okay, my lease is up and I want to rent another home. I'm about to do that. We can often get them into a home for about what you're going to pay for your security deposit. We can structure it the right way. And so if you could own a home or you could rent a home and it costs about the same amount of money. And then one of the other things that a lot of times we'll talk to the folks about is like, well, you know, really I want to maybe go up to that 250, but I really didn't want to have my payment go up that much. And, you know, because I'm renting at this price, and if I go up, that's going to be $200 more. Well, one of the things you get as a homeowner is a tax deduction, and you don't have that as a tenant. So now you got that tax deduction that you could take the lump sum at the end of the year for, you know, whatever, 3 or 4 grand, or you could talk to your tax preparer and say, I don't want that lump sum then. I'd rather have it in my monthly paycheck. So now I'm getting an extra $200-300 in my monthly paycheck. That offsets my increase. And, you know, now it's the same financially for you, but now you own a home versus rent. And now your life just takes that different turn and a world apart.
That's actually a beautiful way of putting it. And yeah, because you could just claim less deductions on that weekly paycheck, you know, because you don't need it anymore because you've got some of those deductions. And obviously, you know, we always recommend, you know, talk to your tax person about the implications of owning a home and talk to an expert about that. But, you know, these are some great things that you should be definitely thinking about and reasons to get going in the game of home ownership. So Albie, we talked about the down payment assistance. Just briefly touch on that one more time, just to be, you know, completely transparent about what that is. It is, to my knowledge, it is a separate kind of loan for the down payment. Is that how it works?
There's a couple different ways to go with it. There's some specific down payment assistance in Florida. There's one that's Chenoa, which is nationwide. That one we most often use because there's some really good pieces to it. Some down payment assistance program have income limitations. One of those does not have an income limitation. So you can make $1 million a year, still use the down payment assistance. There's some other pieces to it where it's more beneficial if you have certain debt ratios that we can take advantage of. So depending on your income, your student loan debt, you know, your other monthly obligations, we'll figure out which down payment assistance works best. But so what happens is, let's say, just for an easy number, you're buying a $200,000 house. So the 3.5% down payment on an FHA loan would be $7,000. So with the down payment assistance, you wouldn't have to come in with that $7,000 for the down payment, but you would have a small second mortgage that makes that payment of whatever, $35, $45 a month until that's paid off. So they set it up on a 10-year amortization. You could pay it off sooner, but if you wanted to make the minimum payment, it would take 10 years to pay it off. So that's one of the down payment assistance. There's another one where the down payment, that $7,000, is actually forgiven after 3 years. So it's a silent second. You don't actually make a payment on it, but after 3 years, it's gone. But if you sold before then you would have to repay it. So there's a couple different guidelines on those. We'll go through, with the client and really help them to understand and which one's going to be the most beneficial for their financial situation. But the big thing is there is an opportunity where, sometimes we use the down payment assistance and we get the sellers to pay the closing costs. We can get folks into homes for less than $1,000 total out of pocket. I mean, pretty much they're paying for their home inspection. They've got their earnest money that they're going to get back at close of escrow if we structure it the right way. They're paying for the appraisal. They get that back through the program. So there's a lot of really neat things that we can do, but depending on how we structure it, there really is that opportunity.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are there any things that that we haven't touched on? Because we're going to wrap this up here. We want to try and keep it right around 25 minutes. So we've got about 4 minutes left or so. Is there anything that you feel like we should talk about that we haven't talked about already?
One of the parts of the program is it's beneficial for the first time buyer because there's really some neat things that we can help them take advantage of, but also folks that are looking at buying investment properties or buying second homes. There's some savings there too through the teacher next door or the nurse next door or soldier next door, public servant. So there's a lot of, opportunities there. And, with friends of teachers, the whole medical professional. So anybody that's in that nurse next door umbrella, that's, anybody in the medical field. So it could be orthodontists, chiropractors, veterinarians, their office staff, the billing folks, the insurance people. So the umbrella is pretty big for that opportunity, and they get the same benefits of the Teacher Next Door program. So there's a lot of money out there for people to get a hold of when they're buying a home or selling a home. They just don't know how to take advantage of it. So we really want to get the word out of on this program to help those people. It's city government employees under the public servant next door. So there's a lot of opportunity for money for people when they're buying a home.
Albie, this has been great, man, and I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you guys and what you're doing to serve our communities. I know, like I said, we already have a few clients that are going through this program, and I believe that it's, I think they would agree that it's life-changing. And it's not only life-changing because they can, get the key to their first owned home. But I think in 10, 15, 20 years, this is a decision that, looking back on it, they're going to realize what a great opportunity this was to take advantage of. So I'm super pumped, man. And I, like I said, I really appreciate your time. All of the information for all of our listeners out there, all of Albie's information is going to be right down below in the description for this video. And if you have any questions at all, how could they get a hold of you, Albie?
If they apply online, it'll come through and I'll get to see that application, or they can, you probably got my phone number. If they have specific questions, they can definitely give me a call, shoot me an email. But we're here to answer all your questions. And also, when you go on the website, if you look at the testimonials, you'll see time after time a teacher said, "Hey, I didn't think I could own a home. I had no idea. I had credit issues. I had, don't have money for down payment." And we're so excited. You'll see pictures of people in their new home, and just so many people that get helped out with this program that didn't think they could own a home. So it's really cool to see that on the website.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. Thanks again. And for anybody that has any questions at all, we're both here at your service to provide a free confidential consultation for you so that we can dive into your position and see if this is realistic for you. And I think you might be surprised that for many people that gave up hope, this could be that silver bullet to help you get to the next chapter of your family's lives. So, Albie, thank you again. Thank you for watching. I'm Dean DeVries from the Dean's List Group at Keller Williams, and I hope you have an awesome day. Take care.